King Charles has named his youngest brother, Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, a title held, of course, by his late father, Prince Philip, for more than 70 years. It had been the late Prince's wish for Prince Edward to be granted the dukedom after his death.
It's been a bit of a shock. However much one tries to prepare oneself for something like this, it's still a dreadful shock, and we're still trying to come to terms with that. And it's very, very sad.
For generations, Buckingham Palace has been the heart of the British monarchy, a grand and historic symbol of royal tradition, power, and heritage.
And really what he wanted to try to do was to find a means to be able to inspire them to get involved in all sorts of activities.
However, recently, a mysterious story has emerged involving one of the royal family's quietest and most respected members, Prince Edward. This includes cryptic remarks made by Prince Edward about strange happenings within the palace walls which no one knows about. Even more unsettling is his decision to leave the palace after this shocking declaration. What is this declaration, and is it related to his decision to leave the palace afterwards? Join us as we dive into details about his statement and why he is leaving a place considered his childhood home. Why Prince Edward left the palace. Prince Edward has always been seen as the coolest and most grounded member of the British royal family. Unlike some of his siblings, who have often been caught up in controversy or struggled under the pressures of royal life, Edward has quietly carried out his duties with humility and a steady sense of purpose. This is why his recent decision to leave Buckingham Palace comes as a shock to many. That is not all. His statement about the secrets of Edinburgh has left many confused, as it feels completely out of character for someone who has spent his entire life honoring tradition and serving the family with such quiet dedication. Well, sit tight, as in this video, you will be exposed to a lot of royal secrets.
Personally, trying to run the team and trying to find the ideas and in the long term actually producing.
Prince Edward's amazing character made him one of the most loved royals and has resulted in many guessing the reason for his departure from the palace. One popular theory is that Prince Edward's quiet and observant nature has allowed him to notice things at Buckingham Palace that others might miss. To the public, the palace looks like a picture of perfection, grand, polished, and timeless. But behind closed doors, it operates like a massive machine, where strict rules, unspoken tensions, and enormous pressure dictate daily life. The staff works tirelessly to keep the monarchy's image spotless, and even members of the royal family can feel overwhelmed by the heavy weight of tradition and expectation. There's also Edward's long-standing preference for privacy to consider. He and his wife Sophie, Countess of Wessex, have spent decades building a peaceful, private life at their home, Bagshot Park in Surrey. Unlike other royals who live under the constant glare of the media, Edward and Sophie have managed to keep their two children, Lady Louise Windsor and James, Earl of Wessex, out of the spotlight. They've prioritized raising their family away from the intense scrutiny that has often caused difficulties for others in the royal circle. While Buckingham Palace symbolizes tradition, duty, and service, it also comes with intense public attention, endless obligations, and a lifestyle that can feel suffocating. Edward has always shown himself to be loyal to the crown and committed to his royal responsibilities. But he's also someone who values balance.
Difficult really to explain what it is to be together as a family for the first time. Just wonderful.
He has spent years proving that it is possible to serve the monarchy while keeping a sense of normalcy in his personal life. His decision to step away may be less about drama and more about prioritizing his family's happiness and seeking a quieter, more fulfilling way of life. The mystery, however, deepens with Edward's remark about the secrets of Edinburgh. The comment feels heavy, as though it carries more meaning than he's willing to reveal. Some believe it could relate to old family secrets tied to the title of Edinburgh, a role that once belonged to his late father, Prince Philip. Others wonder if it reflects Edward's growing discomfort with internal family issues or palace dynamics. Whatever the case, his choice to leave feels bigger than a simple step back. It hints at something deeper. For someone like Edward, who has always been seen as calm, steady, and dependable, this decision raises many questions. He has spent his life honoring tradition while managing to avoid the drama and scandals that have affected other royals. So, when someone like Edward speaks about secrets, people can't help but pay attention.
Is that made?
It's up for Netflix.
Yep.
So it goes all around the world, which is quite scary.
Yeah, but you'll get that every now and you bump into somebody, they'll go, "Oh, how do you? I don't know you."
Whether he's searching for answers, protecting his father's legacy, or simply seeking peace, his departure from Buckingham Palace feels like a turning point, one that might reveal far more than we expect. Another significant reason many suspect could have pushed Prince Edward to leave the Edinburgh Palace is the recent losses in the royal family in the last few years. These losses have been very heartbreaking, and it wouldn't be surprising if this played a big part in Prince Edward's decision to step away. Edward has always been known as the steady, family-focused royal, so these events likely hit him harder than most and made him rethink his place in the family. First, there was the death of his father, Prince Philip, in 2021. Edward and his father shared a very close bond, and Philip's passing left a huge hole in his life. Everyone expected Edward to carry on his father's legacy by taking the title of Duke of Edinburgh, but things may not have been so simple behind the scenes. Philip was a strong figure who kept the family grounded, and losing him likely made Edward feel the weight of his father's role in a way no one else could. Edward's comment about secrets could hint at some struggles tied to this title or unspoken family issues surrounding his father's memory. Then, just a year later, the royal family faced another heartbreaking loss: the death of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022. For Edward, losing his mother would have been deeply personal.
So there are some disadvantages to crowns, but otherwise they're quite important things.
The Queen wasn't just a leader. She was the backbone of the family and a constant source of stability. Her passing may have made Edward realize just how much the family has changed and how different everything feels without her. After spending years supporting her reign, Edward may have started questioning where he fits in now that she's gone. These losses would have shaken anyone, and for someone like Edward, who has always been quietly devoted to his family, it's easy to see why they might have made him want to step back. It's possible he's grown tired of the pressures and tensions that come with life behind palace walls. After all, Buckingham Palace may seem glamorous, but for those who live there, it can feel like a heavy burden, especially when family dynamics are strained. For Edward, stepping away could be his way of protecting himself and his family from all the grief and chaos. After losing both his father and mother in such a short time, he may simply want a quieter, more peaceful life. It's clear that family means everything to Edward, and his decision to leave might be his way of honoring his parents while focusing on what truly matters: his wife, Sophie, and their children.
And did you say yes immediately?
I was slightly stunned for a minute, and then I suddenly realised I should actually answer this, so then I said yes. So thank you.
At the same time, King Charles III has been working hard to modernize the monarchy. He wants fewer working royals and a simpler, more cost-effective royal family.
I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I have come to rely so much.
Edward, who has always been loyal and hardworking, might have started feeling left out of this new plan. Maybe he saw this as the right moment to step back, focus on his family, and let the younger royals take on more responsibilities. Let's not forget the royal family has been under a lot of pressure recently, both in public and behind closed doors. There have been scandals, family tensions, and ongoing struggles to keep up appearances. Edward has always been quiet and observant. He's the kind of person who notices things others miss. Perhaps he's grown uncomfortable with what's happening inside the palace walls and decided it was better to leave that world behind. All of this could explain why Edward has chosen to step away. After so much change and loss, he might just want a quieter, more peaceful life with Sophie and their children. For Edward, this could be a way to honor his parents' legacy while creating a simpler, happier future for himself and his family. While Edward respects Buckingham Palace and all it represents, he's also a realist. He knows the palace is more than just a beautiful building. It's the heart of the monarchy, filled with centuries of history, but also plenty of challenges. For all its grandeur, Buckingham Palace is a working hub, constantly buzzing with royal duties and heavy scrutiny from the outside world. Edward understands that for the monarchy to survive, it has to adapt to modern times, and he's always supported the balance between tradition and change. At the same time, Buckingham Palace isn't exactly easy to manage. With 775 rooms, including staterooms, staff quarters, and sprawling grounds, it takes an enormous amount of money and effort to keep it running. Recently, the palace has needed major repairs to fix its outdated systems, like plumbing, electrical wiring, and the roof. These challenges don't always match the public's idea of the palace as an untouchable symbol of wealth and perfection. Edward, being practical, has been one of the few royals to openly acknowledge the struggles of maintaining such a massive, aging building. He's even supported ideas to make the palace more sustainable and accessible to the public. Some believe Edward's move is less about any personal issues and more about being pragmatic. He likely sees the bigger picture, allowing the younger royals to take on roles at the palace, while he continues his work from somewhere quieter. Edward's departure doesn't mean he's rejecting Buckingham Palace or what it stands for. Instead, it might show his understanding that the monarchy has to evolve to stay relevant in the modern world. In the end, Edward's decision makes sense for someone who has always been down to earth and thoughtful. He knows Buckingham Palace has its challenges, and stepping back could help the monarchy move forward. For Edward, this isn't about walking away. It's about doing what's best for the future of the royal family, while continuing to live a life that feels more balanced and grounded. All these reasons seem to justify without blaming Prince Edward, and this shows how much people respect him. Well, let's check out why. Over the years, Prince Edward has become one of the most hardworking and reliable members of the royal family. His dedication to his father's legacy in particular has been one of his greatest achievements. He has also been a champion of the arts and education, serving as a patron to organizations like the National Youth Theatre and the London Mozart Players. But what people admire most about him is his hands-on approach. While some royals stick to public appearances and photo opportunities, Edward prefers to work quietly behind the scenes. He often makes private visits to charities and actively participates in the planning and strategy behind the causes he supports. This humble, hard-working attitude has earned him not just respect but genuine affection from the public. On the personal front, Edward has also managed to avoid the drama and scandals that have plagued other members of his family. His marriage to Sophie Rhys-Jones in 1999 is seen as one of the most successful and stable in modern royal history.
But the niceties of royal lineage were probably the last thing on their minds as they made their first public appearance as man and wife.
Sophie, now the Duchess of Edinburgh, has been praised for her warmth, poise, and ability to connect with people. Together, Edward and Sophie have raised their two children, Lady Louise Windsor and James, Earl of Wessex, out of the spotlight, even sending them to state schools for a more grounded upbringing. Unlike other royals, Edward and Sophie have worked hard to give their family a sense of normalcy, something that has only added to their popularity. To truly understand the weight of this departure, let us consider the significance of Buckingham Palace, not just to the monarchy, but specifically to Edward himself. Importance of Edinburgh Palace. Edinburgh Palace stands as the center of royal operations, hosting countless state functions, diplomatic meetings, and family milestones. For generations, it has been where monarchs have lived, reigned, and shaped history. Its gilded halls echo with the footsteps of Edward's ancestors, from Queen Victoria to King George IV, and most recently, his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. It represents the continuity of the crown and the endurance of centuries-old traditions. However, to Edward, Buckingham Palace is not simply a symbol of power.
It takes a long time to be able to gain people's confidences. It takes a long time, to develop the projects to a standard at which people, will accept them.
It is an embodiment of familial legacy and public service. For Edward, his personal history with Buckingham Palace runs deeper than many realize. He had spent much of his childhood within its walls, growing up alongside his older siblings, Charles, Anne, and Andrew, under the watchful eyes of the Queen and Prince Philip. It was within the palace that Edward observed firsthand the weight of royal responsibility, the unwavering discipline of his parents, and the grandeur of state events. As a young boy, the palace was his playground, filled with nooks and corridors where he could escape into a private world shielded from public scrutiny. And as he grew older, Buckingham Palace evolved from a childhood sanctuary into a workplace and a platform for his public service. While his brothers, Charles and Andrew, chose more traditional paths by serving in the military, Edward decided to go his own way. After attending Gordonstoun, a famously strict boarding school also attended by his father, Prince Philip, Edward went on to study history at Cambridge University, becoming one of the few royals to graduate from such a prestigious institution. After university, Edward briefly worked in the theater, joining Andrew Lloyd Webber's production company. He later tried his hand at television, even starting his own production company, Ardent Productions, in the 1990s. While his work in the entertainment world wasn't particularly successful, it showed Edward's willingness to be different. He wasn't afraid to step outside of royal expectations and explore his own interests, a rare trait in the monarchy. Also, despite his departure from the palace in the 1990s to focus on his production company, his ties to Buckingham Palace were never severed. He always returned to carry out his duties with grace, reinforcing his commitment to the family and the institution. Edward's dedication to his parents' legacy. The palace became particularly evident through his work with the Duke of Edinburgh's Award. Established by Prince Philip in 1956, the program has become one of the most significant global initiatives for youth empowerment.
When you walk into this room a bit later, just walk a few inches taller. It's a bit scary because one or two of you are quite tall already.
Helping millions of young people develop skills, confidence, and resilience. As Edward grew older, he took on a more prominent role within the program, becoming its chairman and championing its expansion. He has spoken often about the award's transformative power, sharing stories of young people whose lives were changed through the program. Edward's efforts to carry on his father's legacy reflect not only his respect for tradition, but also his genuine desire to make a difference. It was from Buckingham Palace, the very seat of the Duke of Edinburgh's work, that Edward conducted much of his advocacy for the award. That's not all. The palace also played a central role in Edward's ascension to the title of Duke of Edinburgh. When Prince Philip passed away in 2021, the title was initially passed to Prince Charles, then the Prince of Wales, as a matter of royal protocol. However, it was long understood that the title would eventually be granted to Edward, in recognition of his tireless work to support his father's initiatives. In 2023, on his 59th birthday, Edward was formally granted the title of Duke of Edinburgh by King Charles III, fulfilling a promise made years earlier by Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. It was a moment of profound significance, not just for Edward, but for the continuity of Philip's legacy. Buckingham Palace, which had served as the epicenter of Prince Philip's work, now carried an added layer of meaning for Edward as he stepped into his father's shoes. Edward's charity work reflects his modern approach to monarchy. He has long championed causes that focus on youth empowerment, education, and the performing arts. As the chairman of the Duke of Edinburgh's award, Edward plays a pivotal role in continuing his late father Prince Philip's legacy. The program, which helps young people build skills and confidence, holds special significance for Edward, who often speaks of its transformative impact on participants around the world. In addition to his work with the Duke of Edinburgh's award, Edward has supported numerous organizations, including the National Youth Theatre, the Royal Shakespeare Company, and various sports and educational charities. Unlike some members of the royal family, who are often criticized for adopting causes as ceremonial roles, Edward is known for taking a hands-on approach. His involvement often includes private visits, strategic planning, and long-term commitments. This dedication to service highlights Edward's reluctance to be defined solely by his royal status. He has consistently downplayed his role as a prince, preferring to focus on his contributions to society rather than the privileges of royalty. Throughout Edward's life, Buckingham Palace has remained a constant, a place of duty, achievement, and reverence. Even after he married Sophie, the Countess of Wessex, and moved to Bagshot Park, the couple retained close ties to the palace. And for years, Edward and Sophie worked tirelessly to support the monarchy by splitting their time between their private residence and the palace, particularly during major royal events and ceremonies.
You want to say hello for me? I'll be there as well. Beautiful corgi. Fuzzy brown nose. Harry, do you want to show your brown nose? Oh, wow. Right. Amazing. Coming along. Yours is very...
In fact, the only time they left the palace was due to temporal and practical reasons, such as when the palace underwent extensive renovations to address its aging infrastructure. Edward's choice to maintain such a close connection to the palace shows its deep importance to him, not just as a royal residence, but as a space tied to his family, his responsibilities, and his identity as a royal. All these reveal that the prince must have had a very serious, unavoidable reason to leave the palace. Painful it must have been for the prince. But what does his departure mean for the royal family? Stick around to find out. Why Edward's departure feels so significant. For centuries, Edinburgh Palace has stood as a home to kings and queens, a place of tradition and legacy. Since it was built in the Middle Ages, generations after generations of the royal family have resided in the castle. Since then, there have been a series of renovations and construction of new buildings in the palace. Yet, the palace retains its awesomeness and mystery. However, with Prince Edward's comment about the palace and its departure, the once respected castle might become a feared one. This might lead to it becoming something very different, empty, eerie, and shrouded in mystery. Also, the palace has always been an attraction for tourists from around the world. People would flock to see its historic halls, the grand rooms, and to catch a glance of life as it might have been for the royals. But with Prince Edward leaving, and his unsettling hints about the palace having things others cannot know, rumors are spreading like wildfire. People are asking, what could he mean? Is there something dark hidden within those walls? These whispers could easily scare visitors away. After all, no one wants to walk through a place that suddenly seems less like a royal home and more like a haunted castle. The crowds might start to thin, and the palace could lose its charm. A famous tourist center, once alive with curious guests, might soon feel quiet and abandoned. For the royal family, Edward's departure is more than just a logistical issue. It's symbolic. The royal family relies on places like Edinburgh Palace to maintain their image of strength, history, and stability. When someone like Edward, dutiful, calm, and loyal, decides to leave, it raises serious questions about what's really happening. Is there something wrong with the family? Are there tensions they're not telling us about? For a family that lives under constant public scrutiny, Edward's decision brings an uncomfortable spotlight they don't want. Then there's Edward himself. As the Duke of Edinburgh, he has a lot of responsibilities. The title carries weight. It's his father's legacy, after all. Edinburgh Palace was supposed to be central to that role, a symbol of everything the Duke of Edinburgh represents. But now that Edward has left, what does that mean for his duties? Can he carry on representing the name while staying far away from the palace it's tied to? His departure makes his role a little shaky and a little uncertain. And that's not something the royals can afford right now. For Edward's own family, this move must feel equally complicated. Leaving a palace, one so tied to their identity as royals, can't have been easy. Whatever led to Edward's decision must have been significant. Was it the weight of expectations? Something deeper, perhaps darker? The palace, already mysterious with its long history and silent walls, seems even more fearful after his statement. It makes you wonder, what does Prince Edward know that we don't? In the end, Edinburgh Palace is left with more questions than answers. Prince Edward's departure has shaken things up for his family, the palace, and even himself. And as the rumors grow louder, the truth seems more distant, leaving everyone to wonder what really lies within those walls. What do you think is the real reason behind Edward's decision? Does it signal deeper issues within the monarchy? Or is it simply the choice of a man prioritizing his family and personal values? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the following video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.